All right, y'all. The time has come that I think that Tammy and I uh, need to say thank you to a whole lot of people. In the past month, we have been through quite a lot, and without y'all, uh, I don't think we would have made it. But first, I need to recap all the events that have happened. It all started on July 16th when she and I were headed to uh, pick up our son from AMI Sand Hills for Boys in Patrick, South Carolina. It's a juvenile facility. And while on the way there, we noticed that our phone service had ended. It wasn't supposed to.
So, I was going to use my phone to call the center where my son was at, our son, and I couldn't get out. They kept sending me to Verizon Financial Services. So I finally talked to somebody on the phone. They explained to me that the guy that I had spoke to the previous week and had set up payment arrangements with was new, didn't know what he was doing. So pretty much they're telling me that they can't help me. There's nothing they can do for me because I was going to have to pay my full bill in order to have it turned back on. So I started complaining about the fact that Chris and I were 20-year customers. We were customers before they were Verizon. They were Altel when we were customers. They still couldn't help me. So I asked to speak to the supervisor. Supervisor couldn't help me. I asked to speak to her supervisor. More or less, she hung up on me because she didn't want to. She was trying to act like she didn't have a boss. I said, everybody's got a boss. 8 days, over the next 8 days, while I had no cell phone, I called periodically and in hopes. I called in the morning, I called in the evening in hopes that I would catch somebody that was more sympathetic to the problems and try to get the phones turned back on. For those of you who don't know, whenever you have a Verizon phone, as long as you don't let them completely turn it off, like I think it takes a month of you not responding to them before they'll finally just go ahead and shut it completely off. So up until that point, if you try to call out, it calls to financial services. Like they're every time you pick up the phone, they want you to call them. The only thing that it doesn't do is if you call 911, it does actually call 911. So I did finally get the phones turned back on.
So at this point, we had picked up CJ, came home in a foul mood because we didn't have our phones. We love our phones. Stopped on the way to have lunch. When we got home, we realized that the internet was off. It wasn't supposed to be turned off till the next day. The day after it got turned off, it was supposed to be turned on. So there was going to be a lag of maybe a few hours. As it turns out, there was going to be a full day where we're going to be without internet. We decided that since Tammy works at a motel and we had rooms available, we were just going to go stay in a room for a couple days and enjoy the internet and just relax a little bit. When we got there, she went in to get the room set up for us, and I'm sitting in the car, and all of a sudden it just it stops. It just stopped running. Little did we know at that point that that was going to be the last time this van ever ran again.
So I come back outside from going in to get our room, and Chris tells me that the van has shut off and that he can't get it to start back up. And the first thing I thought was, he just doesn't know my van. And I was like, I'm just going to go over and, jiggle the battery cable a little bit, or, stuff that I have been doing for the last few months. And it was going to start right up. Didn't happen. We went ahead and went inside, decided that we were going to regroup, give us a night to think about things. We had opened the hood and there was a vacuum hose off. We figured that could be it, so we just wait till in the morning. We'd go out, we'd assess the situation, and then if the van still wouldn't start, we'd call the tow truck to come get it. So, the next morning, We went outside, looked at the engine, put the hose back on, did some other things, determined that the van was still not cranking. So the tow truck was called and it showed up. During this time, I talked to my manager and he said, no problem. You can stay here at the hotel because I had that day's shift and I had the following day's shift. And then I would be off on Thursday and Friday. Or no, Friday. I'd be off on Friday. So I asked him if he could cover me on Saturday and Sunday because I work first shift. The shift his wife gets off. So I asked him to cover those for me so that I could have a couple more days to get myself back in order. And he was like, sure. He says, and, maybe I can loan you some money to get your car out of the shop if it's not, too much. Let me know how much you need. More or less, I went home Thursday when I finished my shift. The night shift girl came in. I asked her, since she lived in Beaufort, if Chris and I could catch a ride with her back to Beaufort on Friday morning. I left there on Friday morning feeling like I still had a job. I still had help if I needed it. The manager was willing to help me out with the money to pay for the car to be fixed. So I left there in pretty good spirits, even though my car was broke down. I got a ride home. We got to the house here, and then we found out that it wasn't a little, quick fix on the van. So we had to order a part, a computer. We did that. On Monday, I called out and I told the boss the car still was not fixed. I still didn't have any word on it. And I'd be in on Tuesday. So Tuesday, I borrowed my sister's Ford Windstar. Not sure what year that thing is, but it's like a 90-something, 96, I think. No AC. It's making a gurgling noise because the brakes that you hear when your brakes are bad. Yeah, she doesn't fix her car ever. It just kind of falls apart, and then she buys another one for $500 or $600. The point is that it was very embarrassing to drive this car, especially after I was used to driving a fairly nice-looking Dodge Grand Caravan. So in the end, I more or less borrowed this car, drove up there in the heat, 98 plus degrees, just for him to tell me that I was fired, that he had changed his mind and it wasn't worth his time to hold my job for me. He was just going to terminate me. Okay.
So to get you up to date, at this point, we have no vehicle. We have no money to get our vehicle fixed. I don't have a job because I'm too overweight and nobody wants to hire me. Tammy has just lost her job, our only source of income.
So, as I come out of the sleep-in from being fired, I'm sitting in the car and I really thought that I was fixing to lose it. Like, I felt like I was fixing to just like have the worst ugly cry you ever want to see in your life. But I was trying not to do it because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to keep myself together. So I started to leave the parking lot and I ran into the guy that originally owned the Sleep Inn that I originally worked for, who told me that he would keep me in mind if he heard of anything after I told him what happened. He couldn't believe the way they guy treated me. So, that made me feel a little bit better, knowing that this guy was going to be looking out for me because he always has. I mean, apparently I've done something to impress this guy because any time that I've ever needed a job over the past 10 years, all I have to do is pick up the phone and call him and he gets me a job. So, I waited for him for about 4 days and I was like, you know what? I can't wait any longer. I'm going to have... So I went ahead and I filed for unemployment. I put a note up on Facebook asking if anybody knew about jobs. That afternoon, the old boss uh, his wife messaged me, wanted to know if I wanted a job, if I wanted to go back to throwing papers. And my first instinct on that was absolutely not. Are you crazy? The way y'all treated me? Well, the way her husband treated me. She really wasn't involved in it. Um, but then her next text was, Tony and I are not together anymore. We're going through a divorce. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I might work for her. So she talked to me about a route she had open, and I took it back. Me and Chris decided we'd do it. But I told her I didn't have a car. So she decided she was going to drive me. So I was like, you're going to drive me? She's like, yeah. She says, she has a Lexus. And I thought to myself, there's no way in hell this woman's going to drive me on this route. She's not thinking clearly. She drove me for 8 nights on that route. Okay, so that's one of the people that we're thanking. Big, huge thank you on, because she went above and beyond. Also tried to find me a vehicle that she could purchase for me and take it out of my check, but she couldn't never find one that was, reasonable price. So, in the end of this particular point, I'm back doing paper route. Chris is staying home because there's no need for both of us to go. So I'm getting the route together. Once I get a vehicle, then he'll start going with me. But until then, he's going to stay home and continue to do what he's been doing for the past few years. Take care of the house while I do the job. So at that point, I called the guy about my car. Now, mind you, it's been 3 weeks since he's had my car. And he originally told my brother to stop calling him because he was feeling harassed. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I called the guy. He tells me he's had the parts to fix my car since Monday. On Thursday, I decided I was going to move my car to the dealership. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was going to the dealership. So Thursday afternoon, Chris and I took my sister's car, that piece of crap, and went and took it down to the place where our van was. And we sat there while the tow truck come and picked it up and took it to Butler, the dealership here in town. Now, I don't know, I didn't say this a while ago, but my brother just wouldn't have it until I took it to this mechanic. He was so good, and, he didn't show me nothing. And I will never take anything back to him again. As a matter of fact, if I could tell every single person that I knew not to go to him, I would, because he does not know what he's doing. And so anyway, after it got to Butler, they told me that this was on a Friday morning that they talked to me, and they said they were going to start on it that day. But they also had appointments that were already scheduled that day, so they were going to have to work me in, roundabout, and try to get me looked at. So that's where we stood at that point.
So we got a little bit of hope. We have a job that's going to get us back on our feet. In order to keep this route, we have to have a vehicle. So we're relying on getting this vehicle fixed, but we need money. Tami had the idea to start a fundraiser on Facebook. So I went ahead and I did it. Did not want to. Really did not want to. So I put it up. I humbly asked for what we thought might be the upper amount of what we were going to need to get the car fixed. We asked for $2,000. Well, right away, donations started coming in.
So, I had never been one to ask my friends for money. I always tried to take care of it myself. But I told Chris, I said, we are about as low as I feel right now. We can't do for ourselves. We have no money, and we have no way to get our car fixed so that we could have this job, and so we could find a better job.
Oh, at this point.
But at this point, I really was just could not get my head wrapped around, how much stuff I was going to have to do in order to get back on my feet, or to get us back to where we needed to be at. Anybody that knows me knows that I like to be in control of the situation. I like to have a plan in place on how I'm going to do things, and I like to have my bills planned out for the month, all this stuff. And all this was making me crazy to the point where I was having severe problems, severe issues, because I could not get I couldn't get things to level out. So when the donations started coming in, and I started having hope that we were actually going to get the money to fix our car, at that point, Angie's still driving me on the route, the boss for the paper route. And I was really thankful to her. She was hanging in there like a trooper. But then on Wednesday night, Thursday morning papers, she drops the bomb on me. I'm supposed to be going out of town this weekend, which means that Saturday and Sunday morning papers, we had no idea how we were going to get those done. So it was that morning that Butler called me and said, we're sorry, but we don't have good news for you. And I just stopped and, closed my eyes, and I'm like trying to wrap my head around what the lady just said. And she says to me that the repairs for the van, the parts alone were going to be $3,000. And then it was going to be another $2,000, maybe $2,300. It was roughly about $5,500 to have the van fixed. The van is not worth $5,500 because it's high mileage. I still owed $5,500 on it, but it wasn't worth that either because I had been driving it on paper route for so long. So I told him just to put it back together and set it out in the parking lot, and I would come and pay the diagnostic fee, and I would have it towed back to the house so that I could get the people that were financed through to come get it because I couldn't pay for it. Now, I did call the finance company actually before we put the donation thing on Facebook because we were trying to get them to refinance it and give me the money to fix it. But the lady flat out told me that my van was not worth the $5,000 I would have to get to fix it. Once I called her back and told her how much it was. Because at that time I didn't know how much it was going to cost to fix it. So I guess that's pretty much it about the van. When Butler called me, the next thing I did was call Nissan here in Beaufort.
Someone told you about that, didn't they?
Sandra. My sister came down the hall and after I told them my car was not going to be able to be fixed. And she says that they're running a deal online, or on the radio. And I was like, Sandra, those things are never, they put stuff out there to draw you in, like you're going to get this for, a little down payment. It was $125 and drive. That's what it said. A brand new Nissan vehicle, and it was guaranteed that you were going to have a lifetime warranty. You would never have to put any warranty, anything that broke, they'd fix for your lifetime of the car. And I was like, yeah, right. It ain't going to happen. But I went anyway. I went down there. And I ended up leaving with a Jeep Renegade. Test drove it. I thought it was, it was okay. It only had 21,000 miles on it. I figured, okay, so it's a 2015. It's a Jeep Renegade, which means it's, pretty good on roads that are bumpy and stuff. Also, it was good on gas. So I figured Chris and I could deal with this for a couple of years until we could get back on our feet and maybe trade it in for something bigger. So I figured just long enough to get back on our feet. At this time, we were still doing paper route. So I figured it would be good on gas for paper route. So I brought it home. We drove it for a couple of days. And
So we called our little Jeep Kermit because it was a really funky little green color. And because we were thinking that maybe once we were past this whole work thing, once we were past all of this hardship, maybe we'd be able to use it for what is called a towed vehicle behind the RV that we eventually plan to get. His name was Kermit. And we thought it was going to be a good vehicle for the paper route. Not so much. Kermit had a few issues.
The first thing that we noticed about Kermit was that it didn't have a spare tire. And we looked in the book to see if it was a... Some of the cars nowadays have this box. And it's in the back where the spare tire is supposed to be. You take it out, set it on the ground, you hook it to your tire. It fills the tire up with this like foam stuff. And it's like a Fix-A-Flat can. And this is what they give you instead of a spare tire, which ruins the tire that you fill up, so that you have to buy another one. It's like you may drive on it for a day and it doesn't work anymore, or you may drive on it for 6 months and it's fine. It just depends on the tire. So that was the first thing I noticed, that we didn't have a spare tire. The whole entire tire and the cover that went on it to make you have a trunk so you could put stuff in the trunk was not there. And then I decided to go get gas. I open it up, there's no gas cap. So immediately I think, really? They couldn't even replace the gas cap? Turns out that those particular cars don't come with a gas cap. So I looked at it, started, thinking about it. You have to slide the nozzle in and push down on it, and then slide it in the rest of the way. And that keeps it closes, so you can't get anything in there. And also, if you try to stick your finger in there, it pinches your finger. I found out the hard way. Yeah, I figured somebody could come over and open up the thing and put, sugar or mothballs. You know how people used to try to mess up your car. Yeah, I figured anybody could do that. So I walked over and stuck my finger in it. Yeah, it almost cut my finger. It was pretty bad.
So we reached the depths of our despair. We started to see a way to climb out. Now we had a vehicle. We had a job. The dominoes have stopped falling. We had reached the top level of the donations that were coming in, and my sister Sherry showed up with a buyout option. She asked how much we needed to make goal on the fundraiser, and she paid it off. So there's another person that we owe a lot to. Now, Kermit was getting to be kind of annoying. It was really tight. It wasn't comfortable anymore. Kermit had to go.
So I went down to the dealership to talk to the guy about... Luis was the dealer's name. I went to go talk to him about maybe telling me what was going on with the deal, because I hadn't heard anything yet. In South Carolina, once your deal is finalized, they call you from the finance company to verify that it was you that purchased that car. And then, because they have so many people that are buying stuff that on people's credit that it's not really them. So, in a nutshell, they hadn't called me, so I was trying to figure out why. He tells me, oh, we got our best guy on it, but you haven't actually been approved yet. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, I've done giving you my down payment. I've been driving the car for like 7, 8 days. What are you telling me? He says, oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's fine. I'm like, so I come home and I tell Chris, I said, I said, I can't be without a car again. I said, that those 3 weeks that we sat there, by the time we got that Jeep, it had been 4 weeks a month that we had not had a car. And I said, I don't want to go back to that. So at that point, I started getting nervous. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call Drive Time. So I did. I called them and I explained everything to them, right down to the fact that I did not want to put my brother on the loan. I wanted to be on the loan by myself. I wanted the car in my name, and I wanted to have a payment that I could afford. So I laid it all out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is the way it's going to be, or I can't do it. So he was like, go on the site and see if you see anything you like. So I'm on there and I push in minivans because I'm like, we really need a minivan. The Swiss Army knife of vehicles is what I call that, because we can do practically anything in that minivan. We've moved our kids in that minivan. So at that point, I found a minivan on there that was identical to mine, but okay, my Dodge Grand Caravan is SXT. It was a 4.0 engine. It was only a few of those made. However, the Chrysler Town and Countries also have that 4.0 liter engine, V6. Same thing. It's just that they usually only put it in the Chryslers. So I found a minivan, same year, gold instead of blue, but it literally was the same van. It had the button could open up the sliding doors on the side. The windows in the back went down. The back hatch opened with the button also. And an added bonus is this one also had the remote start. You push the button, it starts the car, so you can have your car cooling down before you get in it. So I saw this one and I immediately called him back and said, yes, this is what I want. So he told me to come up the next day and bring my bank statement, my check stubs, all the stuff I had. And I was like, it's all in my purse, ready to go. So 4.5 hours later, I went home because they couldn't quite get me approved on my own. I had to bring my brother. So I had to make an appointment to come back. We originally wanted to come back on Saturday, but we couldn't come back on Saturday because something was going on here at the house. I don't remember what. So on Monday, we took my brother back, and we went and we bought the minivan. It took us 4.5 hours of sitting there again, but in the end, I drove off the lot with my minivan. And very happy with the purchase. I love this van. And this van's a limited edition, so it has like everything you possibly could think of. In 2010, if it was an option in a vehicle, that van has it. So I can't say enough nice about it.
So now we have a really good vehicle. We're still doing paper route. We want out of the paper route. And something happened.
Well, a little thing I left out about the time that I found out that I could get the Jeep. I had it for 2 days, and the old boss that I was telling you about calls me on the phone. He says, come see me. Come down. He says, I've got a job offer for you. The job offer comes with a free apartment, and your husband can work as well. And my whole, you know how you see the guy walk into the room and the needle on the record goes, you're just like, stop. That's what I felt like right there. And at first I thought, maybe I'm not hearing him correctly. So I asked him, I said, what? He goes, my overnight person is leaving. my first shift person is leaving. They're a husband and wife team. He says, he is my front desk manager. He says, so I need a front desk manager and I need a first shift person, which I would be first shift, Chris will work overnight. So what I need to do is I need to train with the guy that's leaving to work overnight. So in I think the Fall Sprawl, right? Fall Sprawl? Yes, Fall Sprawl is the weekend of the 13th through the 15th. And the following Wednesday, I will start training to take over as front desk manager. Now, for those of you who don't know, a front desk manager, when the manager is not at the hotel, the front desk manager is in charge. They run everything. So it helps if you have been a manager, which I have. So, also, he says I have a free apartment. So I go in to look. We drove over to look at the apartment 2 days after that, and the apartment is, I mean, one room of the apartment is bigger than we have here. So having
fit 4 of these rooms.
we can fit 4 of these rooms in. We can fit 4 of these rooms that we're in right here in those 2 rooms of that apartment. So got our own stove, refrigerator, our own bathroom that I don't have to share with anybody. My brother is the worst person to share a bathroom with. And I'm going to leave it right there. He's 80 years old. You take your pick on that one. Draw your own conclusions. Anyway, so we went and looked at it. We decided that, we definitely wanted the job. Free apartment with, everything's included.
We were given time to think about it.
Yeah, he gave us time to think about it, but this is what he said. When he called me on the phone, he says, talk to your husband, make sure everything's okay, come in 2 days to talk to me at the hotel, and I'll show you the apartment. So I made an appointment with him to go over that day. Excuse me. When I hung the phone up, I didn't look at Chris and say, hey, do you think you might want to? I said, hey, Justin just called and said we have a job and an apartment. And he's like, when are we going to look at the apartment? He was like, I don't care. I did ask Justin if he was going to have a problem with my husband he wouldn't be able to stand up long periods of time. He's like, he don't care. He says, I'm going to train you as my front desk manager. He says, what you do with the employees you hire is up to you. And I said, oh, okay. He says, so if you put your husband on there and you think he can handle things, he can. I said, all right. So we go look at the apartment. We're standing outside the apartment, and he's like, well, why don't y'all go home and think of it? No, we don't want to go home and think about it. We want to go to the office and decide when we can take over training. I want to train. So I'm going to go train. And then once I get into this position, I will be working 2 shifts. I'll be working overnight and first shift. I will be training Chris overnight. I will be working first shift. I will be training Chris overnight. I'll be working first shift for like 3 or 4 days until he gets the hang of things. But it doesn't mean that I can't run away from the counter if I have to. But it just means that I have to be able to train him and make sure he's able to stay there by himself before I leave him. So we've got about 2 more weeks on the route.
So, we lost our phones. Phones are back. Internet was off. Internet here is great. We're going to better internet. Lost our car. We've got a car. Tami lost her job, right? We're currently working, moving to a better job with an apartment, benefits, you name it. In the past month, we have been dropped to the bottom and lifted beyond the top because we actually found out that we have a lot of friends. A lot of people that are willing to get behind us and say, hey, we got your back. In the next 2 weeks, some changes are going to happen. But we wanted to take some time to thank y'all. Okay. Get your phone real quick.
My phone?
Yeah, get your phone.
Yeah, pause it. Yeah.
Okay, so the people that we really need to thank. My buddy, my friend, Kevin Welsh. Thank you very much.
Tally Johnson. Thank you, Tally.
Troy Warren, my old boss from the Beaufort Gazette. He came in with a donation. Thank you, Troy.
Jimmy Merle, which is our nephew. Thank you very much for your donation.
Dawn Callahan. She's the remarkable treasurer for our group, Palmetto State Hangers. Thank you, Dawn. That was very special of you to help us.
Shannon Harris. I don't think we even know Shannon Harris. I think she was somebody that was somebody shared our donation page and she just gave us some money.
Didn't just give us money, also shared our fundraiser. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Sharon.
very much, Shannon.
Shannon, I'm sorry. TJ Rich. TJ, I can't say enough, man. You're awesome. Thank you very much.
Russell Swan. Thanks so much, big guy.
Corey Organ. Another one of our PSH members. Just met him at the most recent hang that we went to. Thank you, Corey, very much.
Mary Beth Ramsey Weatherford. She's a colleague of ours at the Paper Route.
She's with TJ.
And she's with TJ. Thank you so much for your donation.
Troy Brewer. Thanks, Gadget. Thank you a lot. Thanks for your help.
Karen Anderson. Not sure who that is either.
Karen Anderson was the one that has the ladies group with the PSH.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Karen.
Tim Bond, a relatively new member of the PSH, I think. I could be wrong about that. I don't think I've met him in person, but thank you very much, Tim.
Daniel Alwan?
Alwan.
Alwan?
Yeah, another PSH member.
Sue Miller and Brian Oates. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you very much. Brian, you went out of your way, man. That was awesome.
And of course my sister-in-law, his sister Sherry, who brought in the rear, but I'm not even.
This wasn't all. She didn't just donate once. She donated twice and then finished the whole thing.
Yeah, she drove up in the yard and more or less wanted to know how much we were short and wrote us a check.